He takes that win, and now it's only a 2-point lead. And was that Denis Lazavik feeling it? Was that him realizing that he just cannot let a repeat happen of 2022?
That was an unbelievable turnaround in that spot. I thought that the position was favoring Denis. Arjun had other ideas, and we're jumping into another London, this time Jobava London. And I have to say, out of the opening, I already like this one a little bit more than the previous one. But, you know, who am I to say anything? Because if I'm not mistaken, that was the game that he ended up winning.
This is Bullet. Crazy things happen at the very end when it's time scrambles. Openings usually have such a little role to play. But once again, a fascinating battle here with Arjun quickly going with that H-pawn up the board. Center pressure on. The knight maneuvering itself and also threatening G4, G5.
Yeah, I actually thought that not playing G4 was maybe a mistake because the knight was on E2. So I thought maybe G4 and then knight G3. And maybe Arjun is realizing, well, that's actually what I want here.
But then has he given up too much time? Because we see counterplay. And look at Arjun. He doesn't care what's happening on the other flank. He's just going for a pawn storm. He wants to start pushing those pawns as quickly as possible. And G4 on the board.
Yeah, the reason that we saw knight d2, I think, was to control the e4 square. I was going to say to prevent exactly this, but in the end, just to deal with it, because Denis says knight e4 anyway.
He does. He gives the pawn back to neutralize some of the pressure, to open some squares for piece activity here. Now that the material's balanced, it's going to be a bit of a race. He loses the a5 pawn, but destroys Arjun's pawn structure.
Yeah, this d-pawn is in big trouble. The knight cannot activate. You know, you can try to swing the rook over with rook h2 and rook e2 or rook d2, but that's about as good as it's going to get.
This is very well handled by Denis. This pressure that Arjun had built with g4, bishop b4, a big threat, stopped, attacks the b3 pawn. Again, renewing that threat, also attacking f4.
Yeah, and rook h4 is not possible here. So I think that f4 pawn is going down, and there goes another pawn. Everything is disappearing here. I'm worried because Arjun still needs to work to potentially draw this game, and he has no winning chances. So I'm concerned about how much time is going to come off the clock.
Now, speaking of time, look at the clock situation. Denis with more than 30 seconds. He's up. He's got a massive advantage on the clock. A great position. Arjun cannot afford to lose this one. He can't afford to go into a 3-point deficit at this stage.
Yeah,
I think the match will be just over.
I was going to say, the king is going to go to what, f7? And are you basically mated here?
Or you lose big material? How are you even fighting the threat of rook h8? And Arjun about to lose on the clock?